In the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution was transforming Britain. The 13 American colonies, once under British rule, won their independence through war and gave birth to the United States. Meanwhile, in France, the monarchy was abolished in the wake of the French Revolution. As Western powers expanded their colonial empires across the globe, Japan, still in self-imposed isolation, remained one of the last nations untouched. But with foreign ships starting to appear in Japanese waters and tensions on the rise, the Tokugawa shogunate's inability to respond effectively began to erode its authority, marking the beginning of the end for the Edo period. In 1792, Adam Laxman of Russia arrived in Nemuro, accompanied by Japanese castaways seeking to open trade with Japan. The shogunate issued him a permit to enter Nagasaki, but sent him back without entering into negotiations. 12 years later, in 1804, another Russian envoy, Nikolai Rozanov, arrived in Nagasaki with a letter from Tsar Alexander I and the previous entry permit, again bringing back Japanese castaways. While the stated goal was their repatriation, Russia clearly sought trade. The shogunate stalled for over 6 months before ultimately rejecting the request. Furious, Rozanov ordered attacks on Japan. As a result, Japanese settlements in Karafuto and Etorofu Island were raided, and a Japanese ship off Rishiri Island was attacked, Japan's first foreign assault in 525 years. Though Rozanov died on his way back to St. Petersburg, the shogunate reacted by bringing Izo, now Hokkaido, under direct rule. Previously, foreign vessels had been provided with food and water and ordered to leave promptly. But following this incident, the shogunate issued the edict to repel foreign vessels, Uchiharaire, ordering that Russian ships be fired upon and forcibly expelled. Trouble with foreign ships continued, and in 1825 the shogunate issued the edict to repel foreign vessels, which called for all Western ships, not just those from Russia, to be driven away by force. Then, in 1828, it was discovered that Dr. Philipp Franz von Siebold, a physician affiliated with the Dutch trading post, had attempted to smuggle a detailed map of Japan out of the country. As a result, Siebold was expelled, and many Japanese who had associated with him were executed. Siebold had taught advanced Western medicine to many Japanese during his time in the country, and the shogunate's harsh response caused some to begin questioning its policies. In 1837, the American merchant ship Morrison appeared off the coast of Uraga and Kagoshima. Mistaking it for a British warship, the Satsuma domain fired upon the vessel and drove it off. It was later revealed that the Morrison had actually come to return shipwrecked Japanese fishermen it had rescued. This revelation sparked criticism from scholars of Dutch studies, who condemned the shogunate's actions. Many of those who spoke out against the shogunate at that time were punished. In 1842, the shogunate was stunned to learn that the Qing dynasty had been defeated by Britain in the Opium War. Realizing Japan might be next, it quickly relaxed its previous hardline policy and replaced the edict to repel foreign ships with a new one. Foreign vessels would now be supplied with firewood and water before being ordered to leave Japanese waters. While the shogunate adopted a weak-kneed foreign policy, many Han no longer trusted its ability to defend the country. Regional leaders began taking matters into their own hands, studying Western military tactics and science in preparation for a possible invasion. Going back a few years, in 1833, the Tenpo famine broke out. In Osaka, where the number of starvation deaths was particularly high, a former official named Oshio Heihachiro, a follower of the Yomegaku school of thought, led a rebellion of townspeople and farmers. Although the uprising was crushed overnight, the fact that such a revolt happened in Osaka, a city under direct shogunate rule, was a major shock. In 1843, Chief Senior Counselor Mizuno Tadakuni introduced reforms to address poor harvests and internal unrest, including crackdowns on merchant monopolies and popular forms of entertainment like kabuki. But his heavy-handed approach sparked backlash and only further weakened the shogunate's authority. At the same time, some Han were building up their economic and military strength, giving them increasing influence over national affairs. Furthermore, Emperor Komei, the 121st emperor, ordered the shogunate to strengthen coastal defenses and report on foreign affairs. In 1849, American envoy James Glynn entered Nagasaki, demanding the release of American sailors who had been imprisoned in Japan. He warned of possible military intervention if they were not freed. The shogunate gave in and released them all. This event reportedly convinced the U.S. government to pursue the opening of Japan by force if necessary. Among the released sailors was Ranald MacDonald, an American adventurer who was the first to teach English in Japan. One of his students, Moriyama Inosuke, would later serve as an interpreter during diplomatic negotiations between Japan and the United States. When MacDonald died at age 70, the word sayonara, the Japanese word for goodbye, was engraved on his gravestone. The closing years. In 1852, the Dutch chief at Dejima informed the Tokugawa shogunate that an American fleet would arrive within a year to demand the opening of Japan. Despite this advance warning, the shogunate failed to reach any clear decision on how to respond. As predicted in 1853, U.S. Navy Commodore Matthew Perry arrived in Uraga with a squadron and delivered a letter from the president demanding the opening of the country. The shogunate responded by requesting a one-year delay, citing the shogun's illness. Just 10 days after Perry's arrival, the 12th shogun, Tokugawa Ieyasu, passed away. His son, Ieyasu, became the 13th shogun, but due to his poor health and speech impairment, Ieyasu had entrusted future political decisions to Tokugawa Nariaki, the lord of Mito Han, and senior counselor Abe Masahiro. While Nariaki strongly opposed opening the country, Abe took the unusual step of seeking opinions from daimyo across the country. Eventually, the shogunate expanded this consultation to include not only the daimyo class, but also townspeople. This unprecedented move weakened the shogunate's authority and caused growing concern that it could no longer protect the nation. In 1854, exactly 1 year later, Perry returned, this time with a fleet of 7 powerful warships. Although a majority of the daimyo opposed opening the country, the shogunate ultimately signed the Treaty of Peace and Amity with the United States. News of the treaty spread quickly around the world, and Britain, Russia, and the Netherlands soon demanded and obtained similar agreements. 2 years later, in 1856, the U.S. began pressing Japan to sign a commercial treaty that would come to be known as one of the unequal treaties. This sparked fierce debates within Japan between those advocating for opening the country and those insisting on maintaining isolation. Around this time, the shogunate received news that the Qing dynasty had been thoroughly defeated by the British and French in the Second Opium War. Realizing the overwhelming power of the Western nations, the shogunate decided to go ahead with the treaty. However, Ieyasu, who had become Tairo, Great Elder, ignored the imperial court's strong opposition to opening the country and went ahead with the signing without receiving imperial approval. He also signed similar treaties with Britain, Russia, the Netherlands, and France. These treaties granted extraterritorial rights to foreigners and denied Japan the authority to set its own tariffs, clearly unfair terms for Japan. Outraged isolationists launched a movement to drive from power. The unauthorized signing also deeply angered Emperor Komei, who issued a letter expressing strong indignation and despair over the situation. Though his abdication was ultimately avoided, Ai responded with the Ansei Purge, arresting and executing many of those who had opposed him. In 1860, anger at his heavy-handed policies culminated in his assassination just outside the Sakurada Gate by samurai from the Mito Han. This assassination gave momentum to the Sono Joy movement. In response, the shogunate tried to restore its authority by shifting to a new policy of Kobu Gatai, which sought to strengthen ties with the imperial court. As part of this, the emperor's younger sister was arranged to marry the shogun. While the court agreed to cooperate with the shogunate, it also demanded that Japan expel the foreigners within 10 years. Although the shogunate regained some legitimacy, it was short-lived. In 1862, a samurai from Mito Han attempted to assassinate senior counselor Ando Nobumasa. Though he survived, Ando was dismissed, and the shogunate's authority suffered another major blow. Amid growing concerns over public safety, the shogunate created the post of Kyoto Protector, largely staffed by the Aizu Han. That same year, on his return journey from visiting the shogunate, Satsuma Han Lord Shimazu Tadayoshi was involved in the Nememugi incident, in which a British merchant who disrupted the Satsuma procession was killed. The following year, in retaliation, a British fleet launched an attack, resulting in the Anglo-Satsuma War in Kagoshima Bay. Though Satsuma managed to hold its ground, the city was left in ruins. This encounter, however, led to mutual respect and the formation of friendly relations with Britain. Satsuma began modernizing its military as a result. Meanwhile, in Choshu, radical joy advocates attacked foreign ships passing through the Kanman Straits. In response, a coalition of British, American, French, and Dutch forces launched a punitive expedition. Overwhelmed by the Western powers' military might, Choshu came to realize the futility of trying to expel foreigners by force and shifted its focus to overthrowing the Tokugawa regime and building a modern state. With the situation in Kyoto deteriorating and radical factions in Choshu launching terrorist attacks, the Shinsengumi was organized as an irregular force under the command of the Kyoto Protectorate to maintain order. Despite being formed by men of low status, peasants, merchants, and other non-samurai backgrounds, the Shinsengumi embodied the spirit of Bushido and became one of the most iconic groups of the Bakumatsu period, often portrayed in novels, plays, and films. Eventually, the imperial court launched a coup to purge radical Joy factions. With secret orders from the emperor, Satsuma and Aizu troops expelled Choshu forces and imperial courtiers from Kyoto. Many Hans were split between factions. Some, like Saga under Nabeshima Naomasa, stayed largely above the fray. The Saga Han had already been working to modernize its finances, revive its agriculture, and promote education even before Parry's arrival. In 1865, Saga Han completed Ryofumaru, Japan's first practical steamship. At the same time, Satsuma Han and Uwajima Han also built warships and steamships in their own push toward modernization. Lacking specialists, many of these ships were built with the help of physicians, craftsmen who made Buddhist altars, and karakuri doll craftsmen, a maker of mechanical puppets. Meanwhile, the shogunate, though losing prestige, was also trying hard to modernize. Under the leadership of finance official Oguri Tadamasa and with the approval of Shogun Iemochi, construction began on the Yokosuka Iron Works. Designed as an integrated shipyard and factory, it laid the foundation for the future Japanese Navy. Oguri even hired a French director and introduced progressive systems like employment contracts, in-house education, and monthly wages, radical for Japan at the time. However, burdened with war reparations from Satsuma's and Choshu's conflicts with Britain, the shogunate fell into financial hardship. Further tariff revisions and delays in treaty obligations, such as opening the port of Hyogo, worsened Japan's trade imbalance and increased public dissatisfaction. In 1866, with shared interest in toppling the shogunate, Satsuma and Choshu formed a secret alliance brokered by former Tosa Han Sakamoto Ryoma and Nakaoka Shintaro. Britain, already close to Satsuma, supported the alliance, while France backed the Tokugawa shogunate. Both powers, locked in colonial rivalry, watched closely to see which side would prevail. When the shogunate learned that Choshu was expanding its military, it sent warnings and orders for punishment. After receiving no reply, it launched another expedition against Choshu in June 1866. But this time Satsuma did not participate, and Choshu, armed with British-made weapons, crushed the shogunate forces. During the campaign, Shogun Iemochi died. Keeping his death secret, the shogunate appointed Tokugawa Yoshinobu, who had led the previous expedition against Choshu, as the new head of the Tokugawa family. Realizing the situation was untenable, Yoshinobu declared a truce. Though he initially declined the position of shogun, he was persuaded to accept it in January 1867, becoming the 15th and final Tokugawa shogun. Just 20 days later, Emperor Komei, who had been supportive of the shogunate, passed away. The young Emperor Meiji ascended the throne, and the court quickly came under the control of pro-imperial forces. Many suspect Komei's death was not natural. Sakamoto Ryoma, who had brokered the Sacho alliance, opposed using force to topple the shogunate. He proposed a peaceful transition of power by having the shogunate return political authority to the emperor. But Satsuma insisted on military action. Working with court nobles, they obtained an imperial order in the name of the Meiji emperor to overthrow the shogunate. On October 13, 1867, the order was issued to Satsuma, and on the 14th, to Choshu. These imperial orders are believed by many to have been forged. Nonetheless, aware of the rising threat, Yoshinobu submitted a petition to return political power to the emperor on October 14th. And so, after about 260 years of Tokugawa rule, the samurai government, lasting more than 700 years since the Kamakura period, finally came to an end.